What was your school's faculty secret? A shocking percentage of the senior class was sleeping with teachers. Very small school. Ours too. Literally, just a few years after I graduate, I see a teacher's face from that school on the Houston news. They got busted in a similar relationship with a student and was arrested. No idea where they're at now. One of our male teachers took in a girl student from an abusive home, and she lived with him for the rest of the senior year with his wife. After she graduated, he divorced his wife and married the former student. They're still together to my knowledge. Also, this wasn't like a getting with the hot young teacher thing. He was a homely man in his 50s. He was later fired for a similar situation that happened years prior after the previous student came forward. Also, apparently our teachers had their own most likely list that featured gems like most likely to get a life sentence and most likely to fall for a Ponzi scheme. Grade 12 chemistry teacher, on the last day of class, went through every single person and tried to predict their futures, openly in front of class. One student was likely to go to Europe and find the perfect Aryan chick, while I was either going to do everything or nothing. I can't actually remember any of the others, but the first dude married a Korean, so the teacher was way off. High school QB was sleeping with the football coach's wife for 2 years before the coach found out everyone else knew. Girl in my grade was doing extra credit every day with the new math teacher our whole junior and senior year. They married shortly after we graduated. No one was surprised. 8 years later, they are still together. Too bad the wife probably won't be charged or even discredited with child predatory charges. Same thing happened at my school, except it was a female health or PE teacher sleeping with a 17-year-old guy. Just got fired. My third grade teacher, Mr. V, was gay. Not a big deal now, but in a small town in Michigan in 1973, coming out was not exactly an option. The thing is, he was everyone's favorite teacher. Kind, caring, enthusiastic, funny, and really, really good at his job. We called him Mr. V because his last name was too hard for third graders to pronounce, something like Vesilovsky, and he eventually had his last name legally changed to V. Many years later, when I was on a break from college in the 80s, I went out to dinner with him and his friend, and it dawned on me, oh, Mr. V is gay. I'm pretty sure the faculty knew, and probably the most observant parents, but if I remember correctly, it was never an issue. I mean, it is nice that no one actively outed him, but it still sounds like he was dealing with the oppression of silence, which is sad. The whole, as long as you stay within the lines we designate, we'll tolerate you. Back in high school, we had a campus similar to a college campus. Instead of one large building, it was several buildings laid out. One building was dedicated to math, another for science, etc. Anyway, there were tunnels built underground that connected all the buildings that no one was allowed to use. Only faculty members knew where and how to access them. Evidently, they were built during the Cold War in case the United States was under attack. My uncle had a great story about secret tunnels at his college. They were supposed to be closed, but some student discovered an entry. It was a whole network dating from World War II between the buildings and the church in the middle of the campus. The local priest was a terrifying person. Every Sunday his sermon was a shouting performance about the evil he saw everywhere and in everyone. Satan, I know you are close, very close. Where are you? So one day he heard a cavernous voice coming from the tombs. I'm right here, in this church. Art teacher's staff room always smelled like pot. They always denied smoking pot. They smoked a lot of pot. Spent most of high school wanting to become an art teacher because they sat around listening to The Cure and looking cool and indifferent. Their staff room was in a small dark building at the end of campus and looked really grunge. One time we were loudly talking outside their window and an art teacher came out to tell us to move along because we were ruining their jam session. Our high school librarian and business teacher were in a same-sex relationship and lived together. Nobody cared, this was mid-1960s. It was an open secret that one of our coaches was a lesbian. 1980s rural England, so unthinkable that she could be out and keep her job. So it wasn't talked about. A shame, she was one of my best teachers. Freshman year math teacher, a woman, had 2 dads. I don't remember how it got brought up, but she told us and immediately regretted it. Us immature kids ended up making her quietly cry at her desk. She moved away soon after that. I felt bad the rest of the day, even though I wasn't a part of it. Senior math teacher was a terrible teacher, just didn't teach whatsoever. Sat at her desk all class and gave us crosswords. She had a good sense of humor though, and was horsing around with a kid in class and play punched him in the chest. The kid is a troublemaker and goes to tell administrators she punched him, so she got her stuff and left before he could. We just didn't have a teacher the rest of the day. She never came back to work after that. That sucks. The first one. My 7th grade math teacher was Russian and Jewish, and some rude student drew a swastika on the blackboard. Her dad died in the Holocaust. She cried and left at the end of the year. I also did not participate, and I also felt awful, and am half Jewish. One of the teachers was there her first year out of college and was secretly dating a senior boy. Right after graduation, they started dating publicly. Similar thing happened with the band teacher at my school. They dated for a while and then got married and moved out of the country. They recently got divorced though. 2 married teachers worked at the high school. The wife was hot, and the dude looked like a toad. The dude paid my 16-year-old friend $35 once a week to mow his lawn and satisfy the wife while he watched from the closet. It never came out. Eventually, she divorced him and moved away. So are we readers to assume that your friend was hot? A teacher at our high school was featured on America's Most Wanted. He was a cop that had sexually assaulted a woman during a traffic stop. He had gotten a job at our high school using his brother's identification. I was sitting at home watching the show and told my grandma he was a teacher at our school. She told me I was crazy. The next day we had an assembly and a note was sent home to the parents. The English teacher and the social studies teacher had the hots for each other. The vice principal would sometimes get so wound up in his lectures about God and country he would start crying. The girls' gym teacher was gay. The PE head teacher used to scream at us about abstinence until he was red in the face and would have to excuse himself to calm down. Our principal would gather the seniors together and lecture them about going to uni. If you don't continue your education at university, you are a drain on society and might as well just die. One time he went so hard that he threw up. My psych teacher was the baseball coach for over 8 years, winning the division title almost every year. Out of the blue, he gets fired with no explanation from the school. Turns out that he slept with one of the players' moms, and the school found out somehow. I heard about it from an ex-teacher that I stumbled on during vacation. Something similar happened at my high school, except it wasn't coach, it was an administrator who was the teacher for student council and was well respected and admired by a lot of the student body. The worst part was that there were students who thought the administrator shouldn't have been fired and what he did wasn't that bad, and said that around the administrators and the mom's kids. At the school my wife once taught at, the principal was very much of the mind that if you were a young female teacher, you were supposed to adore him at all times. She didn't really play that game, and so he kept writing her up for the smallest infractions. He was also very quick to remind the teachers that he knew people in the town and was thus immune to all retribution. And then he was caught, quite literally, having an affair with the wife of someone who worked in central office. About 20 years later now, he's still managing the gas station that's right down the road from the school. I don't know if this is what you're asking for, but here I go. There was a teacher, not mine, who would give alcohol to students and teachers if they paid money. They would hand shots and carved out books that she would lend to students. She gave out bottles and brown lunch bags for people who forgot their lunch. The only reason she got caught was because her son raped a girl and found evidence of it in their house. Never commit a crime while committing a crime. That's how you get caught. I swear I would be such a better criminal than most. Well, my math teacher had a secret. He had placed hidden cameras in the girls' locker rooms and bathrooms. It's not a secret anymore, so needless to say, he's in prison now. Ha ha! 9th grade bio teacher was fired and arrested for placing cameras in the women faculty bathroom. The dude was also a leader of a youth group at some big New Age Christian church a few towns over. The sad part is, he was the nicest man. My favorite teacher, hands down. He was inspirational, kind, and not the least bit creepy. It just goes to show you that monsters take on many forms and can hide it well. I went to a Catholic school, despite not being Catholic. One of the religion teachers got married and had a kid 5 months later. After some math, they fired her. To me, that is so ridiculous. The woman obviously needed a job because she had a child. Yet because of some outdated moral clause, she loses that job? Good grief. This isn't actually a secret, but rather a rumor that went around school that was a secret for a while. But this year, an art teacher at my school walked in one day very disorientated and red-eyed. He was pulled out by the vice principal and wasn't seen again for several months. During this time, lots of rumors circulated that he came to school high and had weed in his car, and this went on for a while. We had a long-term sub, and no one knew what was going on until one of my friends revealed to me that the gym teacher confirmed those rumors. Turns out we were all wrong. Poor guy got into a car accident and got a concussion and came into school that day anyway. He spent months in the hospital recovering. That the reason that computer accounts and security and general IT stuff was a mess was that the old IT guy intentionally complicated things for the sake of job security, and that complication could not save him when the cops found CP on his computer. So he was arrested, and nobody knew how the system was set up, so they scrambled for years to keep things working. At one point, all the seniors had permission to see not only their own individual files, but also all freshman files. The new IT people, several years after taking on this mess, didn't seem to know this was happening. The shop teacher was a raging alcoholic, and the music teacher liked to grab girls by the boobies. No one cared. It was the 80s. As a girl who lived in the 80s, we cared, but no one in authority did. We'll probably get buried, but a girl in my class. Her mum was the head teacher of quite a prestigious private school. Our school and her father was the English teacher. Her father had an emotional affair with a student a couple of years older than us, was writing her love letters and keeping a diary. The student finally told someone what had happened, and because nothing sexual had happened, he had just lost his job and put himself into a mental health facility. They got divorced soon after, and girl went on to be head girl, and head teacher left the position.